As she sits in her cozy little room at the Summit County Infirmary, day after day, her sightless eyes gazing steadily forward, old Grandma White, a colored Mammy, who as near as can be ascertained is about 97 years of age, she thinks and dreams of the old slave days. The old days before the war, that wonderful period fraught with all kinds of romance, are the days that Grandma loves best to recall. She can remember with wonderful acuteness the scenes of the times and later.
I was born in old Virginia and born in slavery. My mammy died before I was old enough to remember how she all looked, but my pappy, I remember him well. Big, strong, strappin man and a slave from the time he was born. I was hired out to old Massa when I was a young one. Ma first child was born in the little slave cabin in back of the big mansion. It was a girl, and land wasn't proud her, though. And then my son was born later. He was a right smart youngster, and soon's the slavery days was over, and soon's I possibly could, I sent that boy to school, and he turned out to be a fine Baptist minister, and preaches in a church at Cambridge, Ohio. Bless the Lord for that.
Visiting days came but once a year on the old Virginia plantation, and Grandma's husband, who was owned by a wealthy doctor west of her place, used to come and see her every Christmas and bring some little delicacy that he could scrape together with the limited means at his disposal.
I suddenly looked forward to his coming. And then came the day when my old man came to see me an every day in the week. And I says to him, "What you all a doing, coming every day like this?" "Mandy," says he, "I's free, and you all is free, and we all is free. Mr. Lincoln says so, and you all don't have to work for the old Massa any more." And then he tried to get me to come along with him to his place. But I says I reckoned I'd wait and hear what all the old Massa had to say about it. I's from Missouri, and I have to be showed, you see. Well, the old Massa says as how he reckoned we all was free, and he couldn't hold us no longer. Then I said goodbye to him and to them all, and I hugged the little Massa that I'd nussed from childhood, and I reckon I cried a little when I left too. I made my old man stay with the doctor till he's pitched all the crops. 'Fore the doctor was off to the war, and after he'd finished, I said as how I reckoned we all had better be a-movin'. Then we rented a little cabin down by the Appomattox River. There we all lived till we comes to Ohio to work at mines of coal down the state that Mr. Lumels had opened up. I did make one trip back to the old plantation where I had toiled before we left Virginia. I looked about the old place and went down to the old spring and picked a pear off the old pear tree that stood by the path. I recollected how I had plucked off a pear as I'd go by with a bucket of water from the spring in the old days, and thrust it in my bosom. We didn't have no pockets, you know. And then I'd eat it later on. I pulled some sweet flag root down by the creek, and I have some of that root yet. I guess I cried a little as I left the old place for the last time.
Old Grandma is the sunshine of the infirmary, says Mrs. Stotler, wife of the director, and will surely go to heaven when she dies, for she is a good Christian soul, and can shout with good old Methodist fervor when she holds little services on Sundays.